And so let's go to Major League Baseball right now, and it'll lead us into the NFL. But the big news yesterday was that the Miami Marlins had 10 people added to who had tested positive for coronavirus. It had been 4 the day before, lifting their total to 14. Now you've had some more people test positive, and the situation is so bad in Miami that they have their games postponed through Sunday. And so that has just led to all types of things with the schedule. The Yankees now aren't going to be playing their series that they had planned to play. So they're going to instead play the Orioles Wednesday and Thursday. Like everybody's schedule, not everybody, but several teams' schedules are affected by the fact that the Marlins are not playing. And we'll see what goes on. Major League Baseball is still trying to go forth with the season. And I don't blame them. At this point, you have to try. You can't give in at the first sign of adversity. But you wonder, is this just a precursor to what could happen going forward, and that cancellation is inevitable? We'll see. But as far as the NFL, you have a lot of players now pulling out. And that is very interesting that guys are deciding to sit out the season, and some notable names here, George. And what I want to get from you is how you think, what's happening in baseball is impacting these players' decisions. But 6 New England Patriots, including starting linebacker Dante Hightower, who is terrific, calls their plays. All right, gives the defensive signals. And then starting safety Patrick Chung, as well as offensive tackle Marcus Cannon, they are all sitting out. So what do you think about this? And what's your take as a former NFL player on these NFL players seemingly responding to what's going on in baseball?
A lot of people will tell you, Chris, that this is about fear, that they're fearing, getting coronavirus, that they're being fearful. But it's actually, from guys that I talk to, this is about 2 things. This is about confidence, and this is about trust. They are wondering, well, the thing that they're displaying is that they don't have the confidence that the league or their policies and procedures as it relates to the coronavirus can or will keep them safe. And they don't have the trust that the league and or the teams will do everything possible to put safety over money. Because that's what has to happen. Well, if you're a player and you're going back, you have to have those 2 things, because people have different, risk tolerances. There are some people who are willing to free solo El Capitan, and there are some people who won't get on a kiddie roller coaster. So when you have that level of risk tolerance, there's such a varying degree, and then you add paychecks in between. Because if you're an NFL player and you opt out and you don't have one of the 15 listed medical conditions, everything from a kidney transplant all the way down to asthma, if you don't get an approval for it, then you're only even if you get an approval for it, you're only getting $350,000, which if you are a $2-3 million player is well below your market value and what your contract states.
Right. Well, I think players are looking at it like they understand that I can't be protected unless I'm in the bubble. And even the bubble isn't foolproof. But the bubble, as exemplified by the NBA, is the best way to go. I think Major League Baseball undoubtedly, unquestionably dropped the ball by not having a bubble, and they're paying for it right now. It's a sport where social distancing to some degree is built in to the game. And yet they still are having these problems after a week of play. And so I think that was a huge mistake by them. And then you look at football where you're tackling guys, you're spitting on guys every single play. And there are more players. There's twice as many players than you have in baseball. and they're not in a bubble. I get it. And Devin Funchess bowed out as well, the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. And he said that he's had family members who have been touched by the COVID-19 themselves. And he's seen how it's threatened some of their lives. So he had to pull out. And that is what is going on. A lot of people are probably looking at these players and saying, hold up. Most of the overwhelming majority of athletes, professional, who have gotten it, have been asymptomatic and have been fine. They've come through it and hardly even knew they had it. And while that may be true, it's not about the athletes. It's about their families. I mean, it is about them, but it's more so they're worried about their families. Guys who have pregnant wives, guys who may have older family members living with them, guys who have small children, guys who have kids with asthma and things like that. And so that is what they're worried about, and that is why the best answer to all of this is a bubble where you can get away from your family members like that.
Well, Chris, as a parent, there's so many people listening who are parents, and the one thing that we're tasked to do is to protect our children. And when there is so much information that is not known, because everybody keeps looking at deaths. Yes, there aren't, like when you look at the number of cases versus young, old, all of that, the numbers are different. However, there are negative outcomes that aside from death. So if I'm a parent, I am looking at it like, hold up, I don't have enough information to make a quality decision. So I'm going to err on the side of caution. That's the way I run my life. That's the way my household runs, is that we try to make quality decisions to keep everybody safe, healthy. And granted, we do some risky things. We get on jet skis. We go in airplanes. We go go out and have fun. But at the same time, you mitigate risk. Like you put on a helmet, you put on a life jacket. You do these things because you do have an abundance of information of how things can go wrong. But here, there is so little information on this. It gives people pause.
I read a story yesterday in the LA Times that players are concerned about the long-term effects. Could it affect your heart? Could it affect your lungs? And they're not concerned because they know what they're talking about. But the doctors have said that there could be long-term effects on your heart or your lungs. They're not sure. To your point, there's still so much uncertainty wrapped around this. And here's the challenge. And we talked about this earlier, George. I'm not really doing much during my average day. I'm not really coming on my average day. I'm coming into contact with nobody but my wife and my kids. We've had some friends over here or there. We've been outside with friends. I go for walks and I see people in the neighborhood. But unless I go to the grocery store, which is not that often, or the post office, I'm not seeing a lot of people. These players that are playing baseball and football, they're probably doing more than the average citizen, George. They're flying. They're going to, they're out and about more than your average person because of the nature of their jobs and the travel. And that is exposing them more than your average person. And that is not good for these situations. But look, we both hope that they make it through. Obviously, we want the seasons to continue and be completed. But this has to be worrisome. There's no question about it. And more so even for football, perhaps, than it is for baseball. And we want to know, what do you think about this situation? All these football players bowing out, the 6 New England Patriots, Devin Funchess for the Packers, and other guys as well. Are you more concerned about football than baseball at this point?
Melvin in Colorado, what do you think, brother?
I would say football has it the worst because everybody else is already starting. They're already getting into it. I think football has it the worst. But I say, I just want to throw this out there. For the guys who have been opting out, I get the guys who are making a lot of money and it really doesn't affect them that much. But those guys that are opting out and they're not making as much, I say, why don't, instead of just like straight up throwing the money away, why don't they like put themselves in like a mini bubble situation where instead of going home every night, they go to like a hotel or something. So just in case they have something, they don't get it back to their family and they still get to make that money so they can support their families at the
Well,
same time.
permanently? Like so they're in the bubble for what, 6 months?
6 months?
Or not in a bubble, a hotel?
I would say so. Like, they still be close to their family. Like, until we figure out the best way to handle this situation, why not? Instead of just throwing it all away, they could
I
at
don't
least try
think
something.
I don't think a bubble is a realistic possibility for the NFL. I think it was for baseball because you have fewer players and you could have multiple bubbles. I don't see that for the NFL.
Yeah, the NFL inherently in and of itself, you are dealing with in between throughout the course of a season with after injuries and all of that, you're going to have about almost 2,500 guys on rosters throughout the entire year. So it's not just the bubble aspect of it is what they do in their personal life. That's the aspect that can't be controlled because like I said earlier, you have people who have varying degrees of risk. So then if they don't choose to adhere to whatever the social protocols are, then it doesn't matter whether it's 49, 29, 2,499, all of them can end up getting it.
Well, a bubble kind of protects you from yourself.
Yep.
Right,
Exactly.
supposedly. And for the most part, it's done that at least with the NBA.
Yep. Mark in Sacramento, welcome to the Odd Couple.
What's going on, gentlemen? I think this one's kind of easy for me. Football is going to go all the way into the cold and flu season into November and December, so it's got bigger problems ahead of it. Baseball is just running into this right now because it's not in that bubble, which is what I wanted to say yesterday. You can't avoid it if you're not in a bubble. You can't even try to avoid it if you're not in a bubble. And I think baseball is going to have some more problems like this just because they're not. But football is going to have the bigger problem down the line if you look at it.
So do you think either is going to finish?
No.
You don't think? Wow.
I keep saying I just think that this COVID-19 is going to determine all of these sports eventually. One other thing I wanted to say
what
about
do you
the
think
NBA,
about
they've been lucky.
basketball? Let me ask you about basketball quickly.
Oh, that's what I was only going to say. Their problem isn't whether or not the bubble will protect them. It's hard to legislate 20 and young 30-year-olds' behavior. That's the problem. Can that be held in check? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers have had the biggest problem with that so far. But I think a lot of their guys are just taking this thing lightly and going out now. You know, they want to see girlfriends or whatever it may be, go out now and figure they'll get it out of their system before the real game starts. So they'll miss a few of these little exhibition and 8-game regular season games, but I don't think they're too concerned about their seeding. But we'll see. It is a good question. And, man, I hope Mark is wrong. I tell you that, George. I'd hate to see these sports not finish, but
Chris.
Yeah.
Football's not finishing. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's not finishing.
The players you've talked to, they feel the same way?
Yes, they all feel like that it will not finish. They believe that it's going to start. I've talked to at least 20 NFL players. They all believe that it is going to start because everybody is doing the right thing. Well, not everybody, but most of them, the vast majority of them, because they know that they have to get 2 negative tests to start the season. That way they are considered eligible to be for it to be a football work-related injury if you then get it. So you have to have those 2 negative tests first. And if you are found to have engaged in any of the quote-unquote risky COVID behaviors, then you will not, then they can put you on the non-football injury list. So guys are going to be on their behavior, but as the season goes on, people grow disgruntled and frustrated. They're going to have some negative behaviors, which then will impact everybody else. Dylan in South Dakota, welcome to the Odd Couple.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Well, I'm going to go the opposite of, I think his name was Mark. I think we're going to finish both MLB and for NFL. I think we're going to complete the season. But first, Chris, I got to give you a shout-out. I do sports talk here in Rapid City, South Dakota with Nate Brown. We've had the pleasure of having both you and Rob on our show. We've got the Odd Couple on our station, so we love what you do and we love having you guys on. But yeah, so basically to my point, we saw a handful. The news yesterday was bad. We woke up, oh boy, this doesn't look good with the Marlins. We think this whole thing's going to collapse. Then it turns out Major League Baseball didn't even have discussions about it. So I think that's what we're going to have. Look, people are going to get this disease. It's an infectious, contagious disease. But I think what Major League Baseball did was the right way to go. Look, let's contact trace, get these guys out of commission, and hope we can get enough members to test negative twice in a row, as George just said, which is the key here, and then resume the season. So I think we are going to finish both seasons. Just it's going to be tough because we're going to have these delays, not just in baseball, I think in football, because they're not going the total bubble route.
Well, it's going to be interesting, and thank you for the shout-out, and anytime you guys need me, I got love for South Dakota, so I'm glad to come on the show.
Appreciate it.
But we'll see. I mean, look, if they get a few more teams to have situations like the Marlins, I think that could be problematic for baseball, and obviously football could have similar situations.